Hi everybody, and welcome to the next in the series of match memories. A little update from last week before I tell you the match that I'm actually going to cover. As I said, I was going to laugh for both days. Didn't actually get my van back till late Friday night. Still not with the parking sensors fitted. So got up Saturday morning, had a flat tyre, so had to sort that out, and there was only about 8 or 10 booked on for Larford on the Saturday, so I only really went on the Sunday. Drew absolutely horrendous, peg 77 on the chalet bank with every single peg in, wind up the other end, and it just gave me no chance. There was hardly any fish caught up that end. But on a good note, well done to Perry Stone for qualifying, good friend of mine. Going to be dangerous in the final there for sure. A little bit end peg dominated again. I think the top 4 or 5 weights were off the end. My lake was certainly one on an end peg with an angler with, you know, quite a bit of room to himself. But that's fishing. You know, you haven't only got to know what to do and how to do it, but you've got to be given a peg that gives you the opportunity, obviously, to do it. But that's fishing. This weekend I'm actually off to Bow Beach both days, which I cannot wait. Bow Beach is a venue I've fished a lot over the last 20 years, and I just love the place. You know, when you get to venues and you just like the environment, you like where it is, doesn't necessarily have to catch loads of fish. It's a little bit up and down at the moment. Some days £20 a good weight, some days you need 40, but I'm really looking forward to it. Saturday, just a bit of a pleasure day. I'm not sure if there's a match yet, but just get my gear right. It's a lot of feeder fishing, 55, 60 metres. And then Sunday is the Reservoir Championships qualifier, which I'm trying to qualify for. I've got 4 or 5 tickets for that. Again, it was a final that I thought I was going to be away for in Ireland. The festival that I wanted to go in Ireland's cancelled. I'm actually here, so again scrambling around a little bit like the Golden Rule, trying to get tickets for matches that I thought I'd be away for. So anyway, on to the match I'm going to cover today, and I'm going to come right up to date here to last year's 2019 Fishermania final at Hayfield. It's an event that, again, once I had qualified for, I was really looking forward to. As we've spoke in the past, some big fish, a lot of that style of fishing is what I've done since a young age here at Gold Valley, Willow Park, Willingshurst, places like that. So again, you know, to go to a final there, I did, obviously, you know, I was very confident and did fancy it. Qualification for that event was at Partridge for me. I think I had £142 after some brilliant information from Andy Bennett. Told me exactly what to do, and luckily managed to qualify. And I can remember driving back from that. Sorry, I'm sweating a bit. It's so humid down here in the south of England. It's only about 26, 27 degrees, quite early in the morning, but unbelievably humid. You walk outside and it just hits you like a wall of heat. So I am sweating a little bit. I do apologise for that. So yeah, qualification at Hayfield. Couldn't wait to get... Sorry, qualification at Partridge for the final at Hayfield. Sorry about a little bit of mess behind me, but you sort of caught me in preparation for Bow Beach. I've got my casters and reel there on a 12-foot power mesh spod rod. Again, that's to cast the big feeder out and put a bit of bait in at the start, just in case you eagle-eyed viewers are watching what's going on behind me. I've got my feeder bag here, just sorting out some bigger baiting feeders, making sure I've got all my end zone rocket feeders, stuff like that. So anyway, went to Hayfield. Callum was going to be my bank runner, stroke eyes and ears on the bank, and he actually came up for a few days practice. Now obviously, you know, I'm good friends with Andy Bennett, and we decided to practice together. He was there with Paul Holland, so 4 of us there fishing, and it was fantastic. You know, caught lots of fish. There was a couple of practice matches. One was on the day when I was actually returning to the south of England. Again, you've got to remember, it's like 180 miles for me. You know, in a round trip, you know, you're talking a good 7-8 hours driving. So, you know, I have to go up there and stay and obviously come back. And if I want to come back and prepare my gear, you know, it's a case of you know, almost leaving 4 or 5 hours to actually come back and sort everything out. So the first match I actually watched, just sat back and watched from a distance. I just wanted to see, you know, personally I didn't see the point of fishing the match. There was only a handful of people on it, but I wanted to see how the match sort of kicked off and started. Sometimes you can learn a lot, and again, this is something that we have spoke about in Match Memories, about keeping your eyes open and using what other people are doing to your advantage. Very, very important part of match fishing. So again, we went up there, caught plenty of fish on a waggler. I remember the first day, me and Callum, we fished on the grassy bank opposite what's pegs, I think 5 and 6 or 4 and 5 in the actual Fishermania. I think they're the low 20s on the permanent peg numbers. And I was there for like 5 or 6 days. A good friend of mine, Paul Wood, fortunately had his camper van, one of these big American type things, absolutely massive. And he was actually at Hallcroft, which is about 9 miles away as the crow flies. And luckily he wasn't there, so he obviously sent me the keys through the post. Me and Callum use this as a base. Absolutely fantastic place to stay. Again, you've heard me talk about the importance of having good accommodation, and this was fantastic. Literally, you're like 20 metres from moat pool. You could do your tackle, you could mix your bait up. Brilliant base. And I can only thank Paul enough. Saved me a bit of money on the hotel front as well, so fantastic. So all in all, it was shaping up to be a fantastic week. Obviously, you know, you got the anticipation knowing that there's going to be big crowds, you're on telly, but you want to get your gear right, you want to get your sort of match fitness and thinking up to scratch. So you make those decisions quick. And you're also sort of hoping for a peg, and there was a few pegs on the day that sort of made your decision making easier. You either had a point of an island or you didn't have an island. If you didn't have an island, method feeder was out. If you did, method feeder was in, and then the short pole would take a bit of a back seat. So, you know, you sort of had worked out your methods. And I'll be honest, it turned out to be, you know, edge fishing didn't really play a part. Short didn't really play a part. There's too many people on the bank. It's 2 missed ones, so you haven't got loads of room. But in between the spare pegs, you have got a jetty that's built for the cameraman to go on. So you haven't got a lot of room to manoeuvre as far as fishing close to yourself is concerned. So really, it looked like it was turning into a long pole shallow, waggler and bomb, and then if you did have an island, obviously method feeder. Now, the one day that really sort of stands out, obviously the first day, me and Callum, we caught loads on a waggler. Caught plenty on a bomb. Actually did a bit of filming there for Daiwa, and it was just ridiculous on the bomb. You chuck it out and you didn't have to let go of the rod, and one was on. A lot of smaller fish on that grassy bank, and something that we found out during practice is that the bigger fish, those bigger mirrors and bigger commons, seem to be on the other bank. There's a bit more shade there. Whether that was the case or not, I don't know. But on that grassy sort of bank, you did seem to catch a lot more fish, but they were slightly smaller. Now, word on the street before the matches, you wanted to be on that grassy bank, and when you look at the form of the finals in the past, that does seem to have been the place. It's always in the sun, there seems to be a lot of fish there, but also something I noticed in that week is it's where everybody wants to fish. You can park the car right behind. As the name might suggest, the grassy bank, you've got nice grass. I've never been to a fishery that's looked after like that, and full credit to Robin and Oli, they do a fantastic job. And not only is the fishing good, but the actual place, it's just a pleasure to be there. The pegs are nice. Like I say, it's just like somebody's manicured sort of back garden, but it's a massive site, and they dedicate a lot of time. So if you haven't been, definitely go. But probably most of you have either been or seen it on telly. So yeah, as the week rolled on, now the plan was there was a match on the Wednesday. Couldn't fish it on the Friday. There was a match on the Wednesday, which I wasn't sure whether I was going to fish or not, and I actually ended up going home on the Wednesday because I wanted Thursday, Friday to prepare. Obviously Friday I've got to drive again back up there, another 4 or 5 hours, so all this has to be taken into consideration. So on the Tuesday I actually fished peg 45. which for those of you that don't know, it's on the wooded bank, so opposite the grassy bank, with the point of the island in front of you. Fantastic peg. Again, Callum was there. We fished, we took it in turns, casting a method feeder to the point, and it was absolutely solid. Bigger fish. What you've got to imagine is you've got a point of an island and you can cast right on the point. And the surrounding lake around here, it's all 10, 12 foot deep. On the point of this island, you've got a lovely gravel bar there that's probably 3.5 to 4 foot deep. Clean as a whistle, no snags, nothing. Absolutely fantastic, and caught lots of fish. And although like certain areas and pegs, people were saying this is where it's going to be, I said to Callum, I would take that peg all day long. Caught a few on the waggler, and what happens is opposite, I've mentioned the island, you've got some very tall trees on the island, and it takes a little while in the day for the sun to actually come over these trees, and as soon as the sun hits the water, you will start catching on a waggler. You've got a lovely depth short, but as I've mentioned, you know, there's a lot of activity on the bank, so the crowd's quite close, which is something that I think is fantastic. Absolutely brilliant, but it tends to push the fish out a bit. So, like I say, returned home, spent all day Thursday. I watched the start of the match actually on the Wednesday, and then drove home Wednesday evening. Spent all day Thursday on my tackle. Friday morning, just fine-tuning a bit, loading the van up, sorting the bait out, and then left around about 11 o'clock Friday morning. Went up to the draw, met Callum there, all the boys were there, fantastic bunch of lads in the final. You know, you had, you know, lads like Ben Hagg, Jamie Hughes, you know, and they're all just fantastic lads. You know, I can't mention them all. It's just, and I can remember at the draw, so I had a draw in the marquee on the lake, and the atmosphere was just brilliant. It's just like being with a bunch of your mates. Fantastic. The draw came round, put my hand in the bag. It was my turn to draw. Put my hand in the bag, pulled the peg out. I think it was 13 or 14, which are the Fishermania pegs. And I was like, that's somewhere close to 45. Went and sat down, and Callum immediately, he's on the ball with things like this. You know, like, I'm 100% switched on when I'm around the fishing and that. But as I sat down, Callum's going, you're on peg 45. And I'm like, yeah, I thought about it. Anyway, immediately I'm like, whoa, you know, I've got a massive chance here. It simplifies my match. Put a couple of rigs up for short. Bomb and waggler for my loose feed line. A method feeder. Simple. And it's a brilliant feeling when you're in this pressured environment and all of a sudden you get given a sort of peg where the pressure's off. Not off, obviously there's still expectation, pressure. I want to perform for not only myself, my family, my sponsors, everybody. But it makes it a lot easier than getting a peg and you think, well, I could do this, could do that. I'm not really sure. I've got to make decisions. Getting this peg, permanent peg 45, made the decisions for me. Really hot in my tackle room now. I wish it was this hot in here in the winter when I'm sat here tying hooks and rigs when it's about -10. But, oh well, beggars can't be choosers. So anyway, immediately after the draw, as we walked out the tent, there's all people there. Where you drawing, like, blah, blah, blah. Do you fancy it? And I'm like, yeah, really do. Walked round to the peg, sat there for a good half hour. Bearing in mind I fished it on the Tuesday, you can imagine confidence levels are massive. Andy had drawn, I think, peg 6, which was a narrow one. Absolutely fantastic draw. Jamie was on peg 2. You know, you had a lot of good anglers. Lee Thornton on my left, Ben Hagg on my right. You know, it wasn't going to be easy by any means, but I was ultimately confident. The morning of the match came round. Again, got there bright and early. Mixed up some micro pellets, bit of ground bait. Obviously had the 8 mils. You have to use the fishery pellets there. But being there through the week, I'd sort of stocked up. Every time you stop and see Noli in the tackle shop, you buy a few bags and you end up with a van full of pellets. So, no bait limits. You weren't allowed meat, baits like that. Basically, all I really took to my peg was pellets, a little bit of ground bait for the method, just in case I wanted to change it up. Some of the advantage baits, method mix. Yellow and white wafters definitely seem best. But again, because they're big fish, you're not messing around. You know, 024 tournament rig line hook lengths on the method. Size 10 QM1. 022 tournament on the waggler. Size 12 QM1, which again, sorry, not, I'm getting confused now. No, it was 12s, because 12's the biggest hook you can use. That's right, yeah. Saying 10s because I use 10s everywhere else, like at Gold and at Laugh and places like that. So yeah, it would have been a size 12 to 024 tournament rig line. And then a 12, 14 on the Waggler, but again, heavy line. They're big fish in Hayfield, and when they come in your peg and want to feed, it's unbelievable. You know, you can really, with the right reliable gear, main lines like Daiwa ST on the Method, main lines like Hyper Sensor on the Waggler, you know, you can make hay while the sun shines. Your gear's not going to let you down. So like I say, I'm on my peg, everything's set up, can't wait. I've even got the clips on my 2 SLR 11-foot feeder rods from the Tuesday. Chucked it out, absolutely perfect on the Pointless Island. Now, bearing in mind, this is where it takes a little bit of a twist. Bearing in mind, I'd fished it on the Tuesday. Me and Callum caught loads of fish, not lost a fish. I think I lost one that went round and just straightened my hook out. But not had any problems. So, the match starts, cast my feeder out, fire some pellets short on my Waggler line, just get into this routine. And one thing we've noticed is that by attacking that Method line, you've got to imagine it's like an edge line. So a little Method feeder full of pellets quite often isn't enough. So double loading a Method feeder, out, reel it in, out, reel it in, and you end up getting a few liners, and then you start to catch some fish. So anyway, chucked my feeder out first chuck, couple of little taps like that, reeled in, chucked it out again second chuck, couple of little taps, went to reel in, snagged solid. I looked at Callum, I'm like pulling. Now I'm on a proper hook, you know, size 12, 024, 10 pound main line, and in the end it's just like snap, the hook length's gone. Come in, put another hook length on, and immediately I'm thinking, second chuck, that ain't right. You know, I never hooked a snag here all day. Cut a long story short, after an hour, I'd lost 5 or 6 hooks, caught one fish, had to change to the Waggler too early. Again, remember, I'm looking for this sun to come up over the island. Wasn't a lot being caught. And me and Callum are just like, what is it? You know, is a branch falling in? Have they put a new rope in? You know, what's happened? Anyway, as the match went on, started to get an odd bite on a Waggler. Andy Bennett was catching a few, Simon Skelton next to him was catching quite well. Jamie got off to a fantastic start, caught 2 or 3 shallow. Jordan Holloway and one had got off to a fantastic start. But I started to catch a few. I think I ended up with like 32 to 34 kilos, something like that, about 17 fish. I did lose a couple foul hooked on the Waggler. Never had a bite on the bomb, didn't go back on the Method purely because you're just losing gear. As it turned out, Andy Bennett won the match. Fantastic performance. You know, it's touch and go between him and the lad next to him throughout the match. And Andy switched to the pole lane and caught 2 or 3 shallow. I think he had a low 50 kilos. So I wasn't a million miles behind. And a good start on the Method would definitely have put me in contention. Went to the presentation, as I always try to do. You know, credit where credit's due. If I happen to win it one day, I want these guys there clapping me, so it's important to me that I'm there clapping them. You know, I couldn't have been more pleased for Andy. Fantastic angler. I'm sure he'll definitely win it again. And like I say, just went back to the peg a little bit baffled, you know, a little bit like not really sure what's gone on. And then all of a sudden, obviously, Fishermania, there's 3 cameras. I think you know what I'm going to say now. 3 cameras on the island. And they've got the boat out and they're taking it out. And then this guy in the boat, as I was looking across, just putting some of my rods away, he was just like pulling these big cables out. And they're jet black, thick as your middle finger. And I looked over to the left and there's a big generator type thing in the corner. And these cables, literally, they put them across the point of the island, into the lake and over to this generator. And that's obviously what I'd had a few problems with. Absolutely like gobsmacked. You know, not that the cables were there, that this, that, but that I'd drawn a peg where I got a brilliant chance. And as fate would have it, you know, the thing you got to realise with an event like the Fishermania is, you know, the cameras and the crowds and everything are what make the event, and they're the most important things. Yeah, the qualifying, the fishing and the fish are very important, but the event wouldn't be what it was without the cameras and the crowd. So, you know, stuff like this does happen. But very annoying knowing that I was like 16, 17 kilos off of winning, you know, less than £35. A few bites early on the method and I could have got it. But what I found even more frustrating was if I'd have known that they were there, I could have started on the pole short, maybe caught a couple, and then had a chance to win anyway. But listen, you know, one thing in match fishing, you can't dwell on things. You can't, you know, live in the past. You have to move on. Like I say, Andy Bennett won the match. A brilliant display of match fish. It's a little bit harder up to the right. I think Andy may had a weight 3 or 4 pegs to my right. I ended up about 6. So, you know, it was a fantastic learning experience. I've been fortunate that was the 3rd final I'm in. I fished a couple this year, but I actually cancelled my tickets for this year when obviously the lockdown started. Didn't rebook any, and hence they've sold out, which is why I'm pursuing things like the Golden Reel and obviously the South of England Reservoir Championships or South East Reservoir Championships. So like I say, a brilliant event. A little bit unlucky with what happened, but you know, like I say, it does happen. I'm sure that peg is capable of winning a final. The one thing you do get with Hayfield is, you know, not only fantastic lakes, fantastic surroundings, but a lot of fish to go at. I know yesterday, I think Andy Bennett won the first day of the festival there with well over £250. So it just goes to show you the quality of the fishing there. As far as this weekend's concerned, like I say, personally, I'm at Bow Beach both days. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to getting back to a bit of natural fishing, bit of reservoir fishing. I know there's been some weights there on the pole and on the waggler, so I just can't wait. Busy sorting my gear out. I've got a whole day on it today. Hopefully tomorrow morning, and then spend tomorrow afternoon with the family before I'm away for the whole weekend. Can't wait. Like I say, look at the weather. Always be checking that weather, not just for wind, temperature, air condition, but the most air pressure. But the most important thing at the moment is obviously those heavy downpours. You don't want to get soaked yourself, but more importantly, you want to keep your bait dry. Your ground bait, your micros, and any live bait you've got. Either use a side tray with a canopy on, or something like one of the Daiwa bait umbrellas. Make sure you really do make an effort to keep your bait nice and dry. If you're pleasure fishing this weekend, I don't think there's going to be an awful lot of wind, so you're going to have a little look around the lake probably before you go. There's been some massive weights and a lot of fish caught by casting to fish. Again, we spoke about this last week. Dobbing if you've got a pole. If not, a little tiny pellet waggler with a red or white pellet, something like that, and just cast at the fish that you can see. But the most important thing if you're going to do that is obviously sit where there's quite a few fish. There might be a little bit of wind on any lake that you go on, and look for that scum that we spoke about before, and the fish won't be too far away. So like I say, I hope you've enjoyed my little recap of the 2019 Fishermania final. It was an event that I won't ever forget for many different reasons, but I suppose the best thing that came out of it is that a good friend like Andy Bennett actually won it. Like I say, I do think that was a chance. That's the 3rd final I've been in. The first one I was actually 2nd in. Didn't really have much of a chance because the end peg tended to dominate. The second one I was in was at Cubmore, I think, on Arena Lake. Never had a chance. No one round my end really caught anything. And I think Jamie Hughes, who's, you know, arguably one of the best commercial anglers, drew my peg the year before, and even he managed to struggle. So, you know, it made me feel a bit better. But Hayfield last year was definitely a chance. I think with a little bit of luck and no cables running into the water, I could definitely have pushed Andy close. But if I'm not going to win it, I couldn't think of anyone better. So wherever you are, matches this weekend, good luck with the draw. Make sure you take plenty of nets as well. A lot of fisheries with it being hot and the temperature up. You know, there's a risk of an oxygen, you know, low oxygen. So a lot of fisheries have reduced their net limits. So always take plenty of nets. Make sure you don't get caught out like that. But all in all, good luck to everybody. If you're pleasure fishing, like I say, have a little look around the lake. Try and locate some fish, because you're probably going to have to cast at them in these real hot, muggy conditions. But like I've already said, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, good luck, and I hope you catch a few. And I'll be talking to you next week. Bye-bye.